the desert sun didn't forgive mistakes. It punished them. By mid-morning the training yard shimmered like molten glass, the kind of heat that bent the air and blurred the horizon until it felt like the whole world was dissolving. For most of the recruits, the sun was just one more obstacle in a long list. For Lieutenant Kara Hale, it was a reminder of what it felt like to be left behind, alone under a burning sky, bleeding out with sand caking the edges of her vision while she wondered if she'd live to take another breath. She had survived that day, barely. But the memory clung to her like sweat beneath body armor, surfacing in moments when she least expected it. And now, after months of recovery, the Navy had dropped her back into the crucible, testing whether a woman they had once declared dead could still be of use to them. The instructors didn't care about her past. They didn't care that she'd served in places that didn't appear on any official map, or that her record carried more commendations than most soldiers saw in a lifetime. All they saw was the limp she tried to hide, the hesitation that sometimes flashed in her eyes, the way she seemed to carry ghosts no one else could see. The whispers started almost immediately. "She's done. She's damaged goods. Doesn't matter who she was, out here, she's dead weight." Hale didn't answer. She never did. Words wasted energy. Instead she studied, cataloging faces and voices with the same precision she used to memorize terrain. Lieutenant Blake, the golden boy with perfect scores and an ego to match. Morales, built like a tank, who thought intimidation was the same thing as leadership. Jensen and Ryder, sidekicks desperate for approval. They laughed loudest when Blake made jokes at her expense. None of them noticed the man who was really watching. Master Chief Donovan Reeves had spent his career spotting the difference between soldiers who broke and soldiers who bent. He'd seen too many underestimated, written off, dismissed, only to rise in ways that humbled everyone around them. From the first day Hale limped across the yard, he suspected there was more to her than she let on. But suspicions didn't matter. Results did. And Hale's results were abysmal. On the rifle range, her first shots missed clean silhouettes. On the obstacle course, she froze when the flashbang simulators erupted, just a few seconds, but long enough for everyone to notice. In close-quarters drills, her hesitation got teammates killed. Blake's voice carried across the staging area after each failure, sharp enough to cut through her silence. Pathetic. She's going to get someone killed. She should have stayed home. Reeves said nothing. He only marked the scores, tallied the failures, and noted the way Hale cleaned her weapon afterward with meticulous care, movements so practiced they looked like second nature. She didn't fumble then. She didn't hesitate. It was as if two versions of her existed, the one the others saw stumble, and the one Reeves glimpsed in the quiet moments, sharper than anyone gave her credit for. But the program had no patience for contradictions. 2 weeks in, the paperwork for her dismissal was already moving. One more failure, and she'd be gone. The morning of her final evaluation, tension buzzed through the air like static. The recruits knew the score. Blake grinned as if victory were already his, bragging to Morales that the cripple was finally getting cut loose. Hale ignored him, but her jaw tightened, her hands staying loose at her sides like she had to remind herself not to clench them. Then the black SUV rolled through the gate. Every head turned. Government plates. Tinted windows. The kind of vehicle that meant someone important had decided to watch. The driver stepped out first, scanning the yard with a professional's eyes. Then the rear door opened and Commander James Maddox emerged. Broad-shouldered, scarred, a man who carried the weight of missions no one would ever read about. His presence silenced the entire yard. He walked straight toward Reeves. No clipboard. No salute. Just the calm certainty of someone who didn't need to prove himself. "I'm looking for Lieutenant Kara Hale," Maddox said. Reeves hesitated. "She's scheduled for dismissal, sir. Performance has been." Maddox raised a hand. "I don't need her record. I know who she is. I just want to see her run one more course." The request wasn't a request. It was an order wrapped in velvet. Reeves gave a slow nod. Across the yard, Hale had gone still. She hadn't moved a muscle, but the tension in her shoulders betrayed her. She knew Maddox. The others noticed too, whispering, speculating. Blake sneered. Figures she's got some connection pulling strings. Typical. They assembled for the final run, urban assault scenario, multiple buildings, hostiles, hostages. A course designed to expose hesitation, to punish weakness. Hale fell into the same pattern she always did, careful entries, overcautious angles, hesitation that slowed the team down. Blake barked insults over comms, Morales pushed ahead, Jensen and Ryder followed without question. It looked like the same story, another failure waiting to be tallied. Then Maddox's voice cut across the chaos. Hale. Raven code. Execute. It was only 3 words. But they changed everything. Hale's posture shifted like someone had flipped a switch. The hesitation evaporated. The limp vanished. Her rifle came up, fluid and precise, and suddenly she wasn't trailing behind, she was leading, flowing through rooms like water downhill, anticipating threats before they appeared. Controlled pairs snapped into targets before her teammates even registered the danger. Reloads blurred into motion, seamless and efficient. Blake stumbled, almost tripping over himself to keep up. Morales swore under his breath. Jensen and Ryder followed in stunned silence as Hale dismantled the course with a precision none of them had ever witnessed. What had been a 30-minute exercise was over in 10. Hostages secured. Enemies neutralized. 0 casualties. When the buzzer sounded, the instructors stared at their timers like they couldn't believe them. Reeves exhaled slowly, realizing his suspicions had been right all along. Maddox only folded his arms, expression unreadable, as if this was exactly what he expected. Blake tore off his helmet, eyes wide. What the hell was that? Hale saved her weapon, face calm, voice steady. That was me doing my job. Everyone had seen it. The broken soldier they'd mocked for 2 weeks had just shattered the course record. And nothing would ever be the same again. The silence after the buzzer was louder than the gunfire that had filled the course minutes earlier. For a long beat, no one moved. Then whispers spread through the staging area, sharp and urgent, as if everyone were trying to make sense of what they'd just witnessed. She was faking it. No one moves like that unless... Did you see her reloads? That wasn't training. That was muscle memory. Blake's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. The confidence that had carried him through every drill now looked like a mask slipping off his face. He had spent 2 weeks building his reputation on Hale's failures, branding her as weak, broken, irrelevant. And in less than 10 minutes, she had dismantled not only the course but his entire narrative. Hale didn't look at him. She didn't look at anyone. She finished safing her weapon, checked her gear, and walked with deliberate calm toward the benches at the edge of the yard. If her pulse had spiked, if adrenaline still burned through her veins, she gave no sign of it. She looked like someone who had done exactly what she expected of herself, nothing more, nothing less. Reeves stepped toward Maddox, voice low. What did I just see? You saw her without the leash, Maddox replied. The leash? Conditioning. Psychological locks, safety triggers. Some of our best operatives were trained to hold back unless authorized. Keeps them from burning out. Keeps them from becoming a weapon when they're supposed to be a soldier. That phrase I gave her, Raven code, it's one of her keys. Without it, she's operating at maybe 50%. With it, she's the most dangerous person on this field. Reeves glanced back at Hale, who was methodically disassembling her rifle, the same calm precision as always. And you're telling me she's been, what? Acting? Pretending to fail? Not pretending. Suppressing. You can't fake what you saw today. But suppression, it leaves scars. Sometimes it locks up when you need it most. That's what the brass wanted to test. Whether she was compromised. Whether the conditioning still worked after what happened to her. Reeves frowned. After what happened? Maddox's gaze hardened. She was left behind. The team pulled out under fire, assumed no one could have survived. But she did. Alone. 3 days in hostile territory, fighting through wounds most people wouldn't wake up from. By the time extraction found her, she wasn't the same. That's when the doubts started. That's why they sent her here. To see if she still had a place. Reeves looked at her again. The limp she tried to hide, the freeze when flashbangs went off, it all made sense now. Trauma written in the way her body remembered things she wished she could forget. But none of that explained how she had just carved through the course like a blade through silk. She's not broken, Maddox said quietly. She's contained. And containment, Chief, can look a lot like weakness until you let it off the leash. The rest of the recruits gathered in knots, their bravado shattered. Morales whispered something sharp to Jensen, who only shook his head. Ryder wouldn't meet Hale's eyes at all. Even Blake, usually the loudest voice, kept his distance. They had seen something their training manuals hadn't prepared them for, someone who rewrote the rules of what human beings could do under fire. That evening in the mess hall, the tension was palpable. Forks scraped against trays, conversations hushed when Hale walked past. She carried her tray to the far corner, same as always, sat with her back to the wall. But this time, no one dared snicker. No one dared call her deadweight or tourist. They had watched her move like death itself through the kill house, and the memory lingered. Blake finally snapped, unable to let silence finish what 2 weeks of insults had started. He pushed back his chair, striding over with forced bravado. "What are you?" His voice cut through the room. Every head turned. Hale looked up, her expression unreadable. "Lieutenant Kara Hale." "That's not what I mean." "Out there," he broke off, searching for words. "That wasn't training. That was something else. Something nobody here's ever seen." Hale held his gaze without blinking. "You saw me do my job. That's all." Blake's jaw worked, but whatever he wanted to say dissolved under the weight of her calm. He turned away, muttering curses under his breath, and sat back down. The others avoided his eyes. For the first time since training began, Blake looked like the outsider. Reeves didn't intervene. He didn't need to. The dynamic had shifted, permanently. 2 days later, Hale was summoned to a windowless briefing room. Maddox sat across from her, Reeves at his side. On the table lay her disassembled rifle, pieces neatly arranged like surgical instruments. "Ghost knife," Reeves said, testing the words. Hale's hands paused for the briefest moment before resuming their work. "That's not something you're cleared to know, Chief." Maddox's lips twitched. "She's right. The program doesn't exist. Officially. Off the books, blacker than black. Deep cover insertions, high-value extractions, operations the world isn't ready to acknowledge. Hale was one of the best. Until the IED. Until she was left behind." Reeves leaned forward. "And now?" "Now," Maddox said, "she's still one of the best. But the question is whether she wants to be. She's earned the right to walk away. To teach, if that's what she chooses. People like her, quiet warriors, they've already given more than most. They don't owe us forever." Hale reassembled her rifle, each piece clicking into place with a soft finality. "I don't need pity," she said. "I need purpose. Leaving me for dead didn't change that." The room went quiet. Maddox studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Purpose you'll have. But understand this, your leash is yours now. You decide when to take it off. No one else." Her eyes met his, steady and dark. "Understood." Outside the briefing room, whispers spread faster than wildfire. Some said she was a spook, a special project, a ghost with a gun. Others insisted it was a trick, a performance orchestrated to scare them straight. No one knew the truth, and Hale didn't offer it. She just kept showing up, training with quiet competence, no longer failing but no longer unleashing what they had seen in the kill house either. But the memory lingered. The way she had moved through that course haunted the others. Morales stopped mocking her and started studying her. Ryder and Jensen began shadowing her drills, hoping to absorb something through osmosis. Blake avoided her altogether, his arrogance curdled into unease. Reeves saw it all. He knew the balance of the class had shifted. What they had once dismissed as weakness now stood as a reminder that strength isn't always loud, and danger doesn't always announce itself. And deep down, he knew something else too. The story wasn't over. The Navy hadn't pulled Maddox from the shadows just to observe a training run. They were moving pieces, setting up something larger. And at the center of it all was the woman they had once left for dead. Night settled heavy over the desert, wrapping the base in silence broken only by the occasional thrum of generators and the distant call of coyotes. Hale sat alone on the barrack steps, the stars sharp above her, rifle balanced across her knees. She'd cleaned it twice already, but her hands moved over the weapon again, like a ritual. Each click of metal against metal steadied her pulse. She wasn't supposed to still be here. She knew it, the instructors knew it, every recruit who had laughed behind her back knew it. They'd written her off, stamped her file for dismissal, prepared to send her home with a quiet nod of pity. But then Maddox had walked through the gate, and everything had shifted. Now eyes followed her wherever she went. Some watched with awe, others with suspicion, but none with the casual contempt she had endured before. That, she knew, was more dangerous than mockery. Fear could isolate faster than ridicule ever did. Reeves approached quietly, easing himself down on the step beside her. For a long moment, he didn't speak. He just watched her work, the steady rhythm of her hands. "You want to tell me why you didn't break earlier?" he finally asked. Hale set a magazine down, meeting his gaze. "Because I wasn't authorized." "Authorized," he echoed, shaking his head. "That's one hell of a word to hang your life on." "It's not about words," she said evenly. "It's about control. Ghost Knife wasn't just about making us lethal. It was about making sure we stayed human when the fight was over. You don't turn us loose in a grocery store or a schoolyard and hope for the best. You keep us contained until the moment we're needed." Reeves studied her face. "And when you're not needed?" She looked back at the stars. "You pretend you're ordinary. You eat, you sleep, you pass for one of the crowd. And you wait." The quiet stretched. Reeves finally sighed. "Doesn't seem like much of a life." Her mouth twitched in something that wasn't quite a smile. "Survival isn't always pretty, Chief. But it's survival." The following morning, word of an unscheduled exercise rippled through the compound. A convoy scenario. Hostiles, ambushes, shifting terrain. It wasn't on the schedule, and the recruits knew better than to ask why. Orders were orders. When the trucks rolled out across the barren flats, Hale sat in the back, her eyes never still. Dust plumed behind the convoy, engines growled. Blake sat across from her, his jaw tight, saying nothing. Morales checked his gear for the third time. Jensen and Ryder whispered nervously. The first explosion hit the lead vehicle, fireball punching the dawn. Shouts erupted, weapons raised, the convoy grinding to a halt. Smoke choked the air. Figures rose from the ridgeline, hostiles armed with training rifles but moving like the real thing, fast and coordinated. Panic spread through the recruits. Morales fired wildly, Jensen ducked low, Ryder froze. Blake barked orders but his voice cracked, his confidence stripped bare by real chaos. Hale didn't wait for authorization this time. She moved. Her rifle barked controlled bursts, precise and deliberate. She flowed from the truck like water spilling over a rim, sliding into cover, calculating angles before anyone else even registered the threats. Morales swore and tried to follow, but she was already 2 steps ahead, cutting through the ambush with cold efficiency. Reeves, watching from the command truck, saw it all. Maddox stood beside him, arms folded. "You didn't give her the trigger," Reeves said quietly. "She didn't need it," Maddox replied. "Sometimes the leash snaps on its own." The exercise ended faster than it began. Hostiles neutralized. Convoy secured. Casualties minimal. But the lesson carved itself deep into everyone who'd been there. Hale wasn't just capable, she was inevitable, a force that couldn't be dismissed, no matter how much the brass wanted to tidy her story into neat categories of broken or whole. That night, Blake approached her outside the mess hall. His arrogance was gone, stripped down to raw unease. "I was wrong," he admitted stiffly. "About you." Hale regarded him for a long moment. "You weren't wrong. You just didn't see the whole picture." He looked down. "Still. I said things I shouldn't have." She nodded once. "Yes. You did." He flinched, but she didn't soften the words. Forgiveness wasn't her job. Survival was. In the days that followed, the atmosphere shifted. Morales trained harder, Ryder asked her questions in hushed tones, Jensen stopped laughing at anything Blake said. Even Blake, stripped of his easy dominance, seemed quieter, more deliberate. The unit wasn't unified, not yet, but the fracture lines had changed. Where once she had been the weak point, now she was the axis around which they adjusted themselves. When graduation came, the class stood in formation under a sun as merciless as the first day. Orders were read, assignments given. Names called out, futures sealed. When hers was announced, Advanced Tactical Instructor, Special Operations Training Command, there were no gasps, no whispers of disbelief. There was only the steady weight of understanding. She had survived what should have killed her, endured what should have broken her, and emerged not weaker but sharper. After the ceremony, Maddox sought her out. No pomp, no speeches, just a quiet handshake. "They thought you were dead," he said. "I was," she answered. "But a Navy SEAL never really dies. We just wait for the moment we're needed." For the first time in years, she allowed herself the smallest smile. Not for victory. Not for recognition. But for the simple fact of still standing when no one expected her to. And as the sun burned high and the recruits scattered to their futures, the lesson remained etched into every witness who had mocked her, doubted her, underestimated her. Sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one you've already buried. And sometimes survival isn't about proving the world wrong. It's about proving to yourself that death only wins if you let it.